Who was your coworker from hell? Had a colleague who genuinely enjoyed seeing people not do well and enjoyed when people felt uncomfortable. She's very manipulative, and is actually quite good at it. She would ask you questions and sympathize with whatever you've got going on, only to turn around and tell everyone what you just confessed to her. After about 2 to 3 months with the company, if she hasn't already somehow screwed you over, you've heard enough about her to know that if you don't want the rest of the room to find out, then you don't tell her. Yeah, I'm talking about you, Carolina. I had a 50-year-old colleague who would message women on sugar baby apps and rub one out over his trousers. Saw him blow his load in the open office. He sat next to me. Kept on happening, reported it. He said he had a genital rash, but admitted to messaging people on social media. I got in trouble for my accusations. Fast forward 8 months, he's sitting opposite me now. He starts rubbing one out in the open office again. I recorded him. Showed my manager, and he was finally fired. He was a vagina too. Till people openly masturbate. I feel so dirty. I remember coming to work one day, retail manager, and seeing a dude masturbating in his car in the parking lot. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Some people just have no shame. I have encountered 2 women masturbating in weird places. The first was an older woman parked at a petrol station. I genuinely thought she was having a medical incident, so felt concerned enough to approach her car, only to see she was 2 knuckles deep. The second was approximately mid-20s, in a weird purple wig and knocking one out in a changing cubicle beside me at a swimming pool. A friend of mine saw a guy wanking in a park. Apparently he was laughably big dick too. Never understood the office masturbators. Like really? You can't wait until you get home or at least go use a bathroom? That and the people that view porn at work and print out pictures from the websites. The one printing out pictures got fired for masturbating in our office during a thunderstorm. I'm not sure why, but the thunderstorm makes that story 10 times better. He told the general manager that he might be a bit late for a shift due to his second job. When the GM reluctantly said okay, he apparently took this as thinking he had free rein to come and go as he pleased. He'd show up anywhere from 7:30 to 8:30 for his 7 o'clock shift. Then when the doors closed, he'd insist he had to head out and he had an early morning the following morning, leaving everyone else to do the closing work. He also had other issues like being rude to customers and other employees. People mostly kept quiet until one day a higher-level manager had to sub on night shift. When he went to leave early and the rest of us with the work, the manager flipped, "If you lay a effing finger on that money before this work is completely done, don't bother coming back." The guy insisted he had permission and left anyway. When our GM returned and he tried to come back, our manager said, "You warned me you were going to be late one time, and I never once gave you permission to otherwise start late or leave early. Clean out your locker now." I knew a guy like that. Came in late his second day on the job. Left before the work was done most days. Finally got fired for it. Got a new guy who would log out of his station 30 minutes early to sit by the time clock. Manager came down and asked where the heck he was when his shift still had 20 minutes. Told them and the guy got a good verbal beating from the manager. Came back to tell us we were snitches. He lasted about another week. We had a sysadmin who would come to work and run his real estate business from his desk while he was supposed to be working. The whole time coughing, sneezing, and sniffling constantly. We called him Itchy. He would also call friends and family and have hours-long conversations with them while we all had to listen. He picked up the nickname Thanksgiving Dinner Guy for using the break room, full kitchen, to cook entire meals that wouldn't be out of place at a family gathering. One of the offices in another wing had a sheet by the door for people to log when they saw him and what he was cooking that day. He didn't like any of us, the feeling was mutual, and left books like jerks at work. On his desk. When he finally got fired, they found out he never did any of his sysadmin work. No backups, no password changes, no log monitoring. When he finally got fired, they found out he never did any of his sysadmin work. Honestly, sounds like your company is incompetent too. Turns out if management don't understand IT, it's possible to just make crap up and fake doing your job, but it's almost as much work as just doing your job right in the first place. as a systems administrator can confirm. Honestly, sounds like your company is incompetent too. Never worked in a big company before? Incompetent people remain working all the time. Case in point, I should be working, but instead I'm posting this to Reddit. The true mark of a competent person is getting his work done while also slacking on Reddit. Supervisors will say, if you have time to be on Reddit, you could be finding more work to do. Bitch, all my responsibilities as listed on my job description are taken care of in full. If you want me to work more, then pay me more. I worked shifts. Can't go home unless I pass over my reports to the next person face to face. One particular bitch loves coming in late. Not 5 or 10 minutes late, I'm talking 25 to 30 minutes late. Best part, she loves bitching about how everyone is always on her ass for coming in late. She literally lives 5 minutes walk away from work, so no one knows why she's always late. Edit, this was when I worked in the ICU. I can't just abandon my patient willy-nilly. Go get her ass. Edit, take your patient with you, duh. Surprise, bitch, your shift starts now. So put down the ego and get your ass out here. I worked fast food and we had a guy like this. Lived 5 minutes away and would consistently be 30 minutes to an hour late. Was late so much that we started to schedule him an hour later, still came in late. We started betting on what time he would show up because he was late so much. Being an hour late every time and not getting fired, how that is possible? The owners of the store are super hands-off and are against firing anyone. Plus he knew how to do his job and we need to keep as many of those people as possible. She was just following the late law: the closer to work/school/ whatever you live, the later you'll be. This explains a great deal about working from home. This woman who was one of those people who always had to one-up you. Like if you cut your thumb off, she was just recently sawed in half. She was constantly complaining and miserable and it was so draining. I had a coworker like this. Drove us all crazy. Around 2002 in an IT department. Here's some of his claims. Friends with George Lucas, dated Kirstie Alley. Steven Spielberg was going to produce one of his screenplays, but someone was jealous and claimed he plagiarized her work, and Spielberg believed him, but she had connections so he couldn't do anything about it. Had a degree in law and was a lawyer before he became a software developer and won every case. Dude was maybe 25 at the time, he sucked as a developer, and I flat out told him once he should re-enter the legal field, which he somehow took as a compliment. Played golf with Bill Gates on more than one occasion. There's a lot more, but these are the biggest lies. A guy in the Air Force, I didn't work with him, but he was such a liar he gained a reputation across the base of all the things he had done, owned, etc. Someone in his department typed up a 2-page, single-space letter of all his brags. The guy was 25 in 2002 and claimed he dated Kirstie Alley? Odd choice of fake Hollywood star girlfriend, she would have been in her 50s at the time. That stuck out to me too. She was hot, when she was on Cheers in the late 80s. I knew someone in 8th grade who was like this. I mean, at least she had the excuse of youth and immaturity, but oh my god, the crap she'd say. She said that she used to go to this private Catholic middle school that one of my friends went to, and she played on their boys' hockey team, unsure if a middle school even had one, and they let her wear figure skates to play in the games, and she was really good at doing, like, a triple toe loop or something to get the puck past defenders. Her permanent record, like her school record, was burned down when her family's house/garage burned down because for some reason she was in possession of her own permanent record. She claimed it was because they moved/had moved/were moving, and so former school gave it to her to give to her new school. Sounds like this person escaped from a 90s family film. That's nothing. I had 3 coworkers who did that. She almost got me fired because she wanted to find the weakest looking guy to be her little errand boy. When I told her politely to go screw herself, she told HR that I had been taking work out of her queue in the system. It wasn't a very good lie though, because why would I want to do more work than I have to? I even said this to HR in the disciplinary meeting. Did anything happen to her for lying? Nope. They just called it a dispute and everyone carried on. I got fired later for not being great at the job in the end. She left to go and do something else. 2 or 3 years later, She saw me in a local bar and said, "Oh my goodness, hi. I haven't seen you for ages." As if nothing happened. I totally ignored her. You can't try to get someone fired and then act as if nothing happened. 2 or 3 years later, she saw me in a local bar and said, "Oh my goodness, hi. I haven't seen you for ages." As if nothing happened. I have had people do this with me, as well. One person stopped me in a grocery store to say, "It's been so long," and asked me how I've been doing, how my family is. I just looked at them and shook my head and carried on. Talk about two-faced. It's been so long. Yeah, for a reason. Bye. I wish it had been longer. I knew this girl from like first grade all the way through high school. We were good friends until like 7th grade. In middle school, I was sick a lot. I missed math class, which I shared with this girl. I texted her to ask what our homework was. She texted me back crap that didn't make sense, so I called her. She proceeded to make fun of my horribly on the phone and got her dad to join in on it. I never talked to her again. She still pretends we're buds when I see her in public. She tried to hug me once at a comic convention and my sister loudly asked, "Isn't that the girl who got her dad to make fun of you over the phone while you sobbed in the backyard?" Hopefully she got the hint. I don't care if it was middle school and I'm now 25. F you, Jessie. So that girl's effed up, but what the hell is the dad's problem? Who would do that? Absolutely no clue. He's an alcoholic, so he was probably drunk as F. I used to work part-time at a shipping warehouse and at one point, we ended up hiring this 16-year-old kid. He made a ton of mistakes that we ended up having to fix for him, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt at first just because he was new. But not only did he never learn from his F-ups, but he was incredibly lazy and lacked any self-awareness. There were instances where he was given a task, but then he'd either dick around on his phone most of the time, hide out in the bathroom for like 45 minutes and then hoped we wouldn't notice, or just whine to my supervisor that he didn't want to do whatever he was assigned. Because of that, he would often take half the day to do like 30 minutes of work and would then complain that he had too much work piled on top of him. It was ridiculous. He lasted maybe a month before my supervisor let him go. I had 2 coworkers like that at my college job as a theater lighting technician. For a semester, the 3 of us were always on shift together, and every time I turned around from doing the actual job, the 2 of them were either dicking around together or on their phones. The worst time was once when I was up a tall ladder changing out lenses. One of them was supposed to be footing the ladder, the other was supposed to be taking the lenses I removed as I passed them down and handing me up the new ones to install. I looked around with a lens, and they were both on the other side of the theater, having wandered away in conversation, not even looking at me. If that ladder had toppled, I doubt they would have even noticed. Till the answer to the riddle, how many people does it take to change a theater light bulb? I've had a few jobs where kids like this would come into work. Eventually I'd just tell them, you're going to get fired if you don't pick up the slack. There's 100 kids just like you waiting to do this job. Eventually we'll find one who will do it well. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But I think a lot of teenagers don't really understand the reality of work. It's not like they have any experience to draw on, and a lot of kids have a sort of immortality complex where they don't think anything bad will happen to them. Sometimes having something like this pointed out by disinterested older coworker is enough to wake them up. If not, then getting fired certainly will do that. Lol, my easy first job ended up being bathing dogs for 10 hours at a time. Which doesn't sound too bad, except for the hours running an industrial blower inside essentially a big sheet metal bathtub, or my cracked hands, or the possibility of bites, happily I'm quick, or the fact that I had to express the anal gland. My first job after high school was a cakewalk. I remember thinking the vet techs had an easy job. Working with animals all day? Sounds like getting paid for having fun. Then one of the vet techs came into my cat's appointment with a bite on his hand that looked like it could have come from Cujo himself. I asked him what happened, and he said that a German Shepherd didn't take kindly to getting some shot as casually as an only slightly annoyed office worker might complain about Dave from accounting reheating leftover Indian food. Like having a giant dog try and take your thumb off was just one of those mild annoyances that come with any job. Walked out of there with a little more gratitude for my job than what I walked in there with. At my previous vet's office, one of the techs we liked disappeared. We asked about her, but they said she's taking a break for her health. Later, we found out she was savaged by a cocker spaniel with rage syndrome while giving it a bath. Tore up her arm something fierce. She had to have multiple surgeries to get partial reconstruction on her arm and wrist, and was unable to work or even drive a car for a long trip because she had to relearn how to use her hand due to nerve damage. Had a coworker who always gossiped about others and would say horrible things about everyone in the office. It created a super toxic culture and caused many people to leave, not because they didn't like the work, they just hated the culture. Had a coworker who would talk to you in a low, earnest, confidential tone about everyone else. Instigator is, I think so-and-so's a bitch. Don't you? Innocent person, IP, no, I like her. Is what about the time she did such and such thing? Don't you think that was bitchy? I think that was bitchy. IP, well, I guess I could see how people might think that was bitchy, but is the next day, blasting to anyone who would listen, IP told me she thinks so-and-so is a bitch. And she kept talking about the time she did such and what a bitch she was for doing that. Fortunately, she got cold-shouldered out. Basically, everyone removed her from social media and refused to talk to her in person about anything that wasn't strictly task-related. She left shortly after. I work at a hotel with a restaurant and every one of the restaurant workers was like this. The result was the most dysfunctional group of people I've ever seen. Certain people couldn't work alone together, otherwise, it would end with a screaming match in front of the guests. Management frequently got into conflicts with them for just trying to get them to do their jobs. One positive impact COVID has had was that we don't have our restaurant open during the pandemic. I haven't missed that at all. Restaurant work and work families can be so good and so rewarding. I wouldn't have many of my favorite people in my life if it weren't for restaurant work. But damn, can that same environment be the perfect breeding ground for that toxicity you're talking about? Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.